Around half of the United States' ocean-going cargo is at a standstill this Tuesday. That's after thousands of members of the International Longshoremen's Association walked out on the job and went on strike in around 36 ports around the United States, including here in Baltimore, one of the most important hubs on the eastern seaboard. At the heart of all this is a straightforward battle over compensation. These workers demanding a wage rise over the next 6 years. They can't agree on a number with their employers, but they're also protesting, as you can see behind me, against the automation of their jobs and the risk that they would have on their livelihoods. These workers do at least have the backing of US President Joe Biden, who says that these workers are entitled to negotiate a fair wage and fair compensation after years in which their wages were hollowed out by years of inflation. But there's also concern about the potential impact on supply chains. Biden says he's not immediately concerned about shortages of food and other critical supplies on grocery store shelves. But we spoke to the former governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, a little earlier, who's now running for a seat in the US Senate. And his concern was a little more immediate.
I think right away you could start seeing shortages with respect to things like vegetables and fruits and things that are perishable, that they've got to get in and out quickly. But it's going to, the longer it goes on, the worse it could get, and more products are going to be affected. So my hope is we can get it resolved sooner rather than later.
So if thousands of workers around the US are putting their livelihoods on the line by walking out on the job and going on strike, it's perhaps especially so for the workers here in Baltimore. We're here just months after a key bridge collapsed in Baltimore, forcing the temporary shutdown of the entire port and the temporary layoff of many of those workers while the operation got back on its feet. And here they are months later walking out on the job and putting their livelihoods at risk. There's also perhaps concern among some retailers who are entering the most critical part of the year, the holiday shopping season here in the US, which starts to fire up between now and the end of December. Now, most retailers have already got their inventory in place for that holiday season, but the longer this strike goes on, the more they will be concerned about getting supplies in for those shelves. There's also concern that the longer this strike goes on, it could trigger a reignition of inflation, which has only just been tamed here in the United States. You remember that during the COVID-19 pandemic, it was the impact on international shipping and those supply chains which first triggered the inflation crisis, the biggest inflation crisis for 40 years. Owen Fairclough, CGTN in Baltimore.